Shannon Kunkel, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Gwyneth.
In honor of Sunshine Week, which is coming up, we are checking in with you on the state of transparency in New Mexico. First, we've just finished the 30-day legislative session, hopefully the last that we'll have to deal with these pandemic-related restrictions. What was good about this last session in terms of access for the public?
Well, even before the session began, FOG sent a letter to legislative leadership, and we asked for certain measures to be put in place for transparency purposes. One of those was ensuring that the webcast was up and running, and that if at any point it went down, that they would halt proceedings until they could clear up the technical issues. So for the public, what was really great about having access via webcast and Zoom is that, your typical mom down in Silver City was able to hop on Zoom, make a comment about the teacher salary issue, for example, without having to make the trip up to Santa Fe.
So do you think that's something that should continue after the pandemic is over?
I really do. I think it's ideal for folks to be able to tune in remotely, especially, we're the fifth largest state in the country geographically. So it makes a lot of sense to have that remote option. That said, it is obviously ideal for everyone to be up in the building and to have those face-to-face interactions with lawmakers.
What was not so good about transparency?
One thing, for example, with the Zoom that we had requested was that lawmakers be on camera during the hearings, and that was not always the case. So it was hard to know who was really tuned in and paying attention to the committee hearings. Another thing that was difficult was that there was one committee, the Senate Committees Committee, which determines the germaneness of bills in a 30-day session.
Essentially, they get to decide whether the bill gets heard or not.
Exactly. So in a 30-day budget session, only things that are on the governor's call are ruled to be heard other than budget matters. And so basically this committee decided whether bills moved forward or they died that day. And those proceedings were not webcast. They were allowing citizens to sit in the room to observe the proceedings, but it would have been so much better for the public to have been able to watch those. And the House has a similar committee, the House Rules of Order and Business Committee, and they were webcasting. So it's a little bit disjointed in that way.
Yeah. One of the things we've complained about as journalists over the years is dummy bills. They're sort of blank pieces of paper that are submitted early in the session as a bill. There's nothing in it, but they can pull it out at the last minute, write something up, and send it through. Does that bug you guys?
It does. I think they're intended to be used in cases of emergencies, right? If, we were to have some kind of catastrophic event like a COVID sort of situation crop up in the middle of the legislature, they could pull one of these bills together and address a problem. Unfortunately, what tends to happen is bills that were previously tabled then get resurrected at the 11th hour using these dummy bills. And it can at times skirt the committee process, which is really when the public has a chance to weigh in and make comments. So we like for bills to make their way to the governor's desk in the traditional manner where it's assigned committees, the public is able to speak out, and then it moves to the floor.
Shannon, let me also ask you about these omnibus bills that happen during a budget session, for example. What's the problem with those?
Well, especially in a short session right at the end, we had folks who were calling FOG even asking, saying, hey, do you know what's in this bill? And it was really hard to keep track of. Even journalists who are veteran reporters at the Roundhouse were confused at the last minute. What's in, what's out, when all of these bills were rolled together and amended at the last minute.
Yeah, that it can be hundreds and hundreds of pages, and it's like an archaeological dig trying to figure out, did that thing end up in this bill or did they get rid of it?
Exactly. And when you're having these amendments to amendments, and they're happening on the floor, the public doesn't have the opportunity to comment or weigh in on any particular provision.
And an amendment can completely change the nature of the bill.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It can change how the legislation works entirely.
The legislature also met late last year to finalize redistricting plans that had been forwarded to them by the first ever Citizens Redistricting Committee. And that committee's work was largely praised for its accessibility and openness to the public. What about the process when it got to the legislature? Was that as good?
Yeah. No, it was not as good with the legislature. The redistricting committee was terrific in that they held hybrid meetings around the state where you could participate via Zoom. You could actually meet with the folks on the committee, and that was terrific. Once we got to the legislature, we saw a lot of closed door sessions where they were discussing the maps. And FOG actually sent a letter to lawmakers urging them to conduct their work in public. Unfortunately, that didn't happen to a large degree.
We have 10 years before they take up redistricting again, which is a long time, but also allows us to think about how we might want to do it better. Do you have any recommendations for how that should change next time?
In the 30-day session, a constitutional amendment was proposed to create an independent redistricting commission, which would have the authority to essentially make the maps and skirt the legislature altogether. We do think that for transparency purposes, that might be the better route, so long as that committee operated in a similar, that commission, I apologize, operated in a similar manner to the committee where it was receiving public input and keeping the process in the light.
And then whatever they decide, that's it. The legislature doesn't get to take it back and mess with it.
Exactly. And, it really does make sense that way.
So at least twice in recent years, lobbyists have accused state lawmakers of sexual harassment. And in both cases, there has arisen this tension between privacy and trying to protect some element of the private lives of these accusers with a transparent process that holds politicians accountable for their actions. How can we balance privacy and transparency when it comes to things like this?
That is basically what FOG deals with all the time, is this right to privacy versus the public's right to know. And in most cases, the public's right to know really does trump individual privacy, particularly elected officials who have chosen to waive some of those rights by running for office. We would like to see any investigation be as public and transparent as possible. I think it's important for the public to be able to hold accountable officials for their behavior while they're serving us in office.
And one of the quirks of this process right now is that the legislature is in charge of policing itself. Why do these things not go to the new and, by many accounts, pretty well functioning Ethics Commission?
I think ideally they should. I think that that's something that the Ethics Commission, we could have legislation passed that would refer these types of complaints to the Independent Ethics Commission, which, FOG fought pretty hard to ensure that their process at the State Ethics Commission is one that's very transparent. And that was something FOG worked hard to ensure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. On the local level, city councils, county commissions, they've had a lot of time to adapt to pandemic restrictions, keeping their meetings open by going online in many of the same ways that the legislature did. Technology helps. But what about people who are trying to get information from government agencies through our state FOIA process, which is called IPRA here? How well are we doing right now on making sure that citizens have access to the records of their own government?
Gwyneth, that has been a real problem throughout the pandemic. And we at FOG operate a hotline where citizens, journalists, and others can call if they're having problems receiving records from government bodies. And that hotline has been ringing off the hook since the beginning of the year. They're citing many of these different cities and agencies, cabinet departments are citing staffing shortages. We know that there's an employment crisis in the country, and government is seeing that as well. And so many of them are saying, hey, we don't have the staff to pull together these records that citizens are requesting. And quite frankly, that's just not an excuse that we can accept. It's an essential function of government under the law.
It's like keeping the lights on and keeping the water flowing.
Exactly. And, even within the state attorney general's office, which is charged with compliance, they're having staffing shortages. So when citizens submit a complaint to the AG's office, oftentimes there's really considerable delays in that process as well. So there's really no recourse for citizens right now other than filing lawsuits.
And that's expensive, though. You're working on a solution to that, aren't you?
We are. So, even newsrooms have trouble sometimes filing these types of lawsuits because of shrinking budgets and they might not have an attorney available. Certainly, the public might not be able to hire an attorney just to get a government record. So, FOG has launched a campaign last year to hire what we're dubbing our state sunshine attorney. And this attorney would be available for citizens, journalists, business folks when they're having problems getting records. We have raised to date in cash and pledges $295,000, which would really go a long way to our $300,000 goal. So we're in the home stretch, and our hope is that we'll be able to get someone hired on by the end of the year.
And that means if I am trying to, get some information from the city council about whether or not they're going to put a roundabout near my house, and they won't give it to me and they won't give it to me, I can call you guys and say, hey, what can I do here? And that staff attorney could help me.
Yeah, and the kinds of things they might do to start with are send a letter to the city council. Hey, we're going to put you on notice. You need to give the citizen the information, or it could go so far as a lawsuit in district court.
And those letters from lawyers actually really work because people get scared that they are really going to get sued, and it does kind of give them a kick in the pants, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Even when I, who am not a lawyer, send a letter on behalf of FOG, it really can get the attention of these agencies.
All right. Well, Sunshine Week is coming up, and we will all be looking for more transparency in government in New Mexico. Thank you so much, Shannon, for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Gwyneth.